When one says I, he is not thinking of himself as a solitary individual. Each person comprehends himself within a certain background and set of circumstances. When I think of myself, I think of my family, parents, and surroundings. Each of you is aware of being a citizen of a country. A man of deeper thought thinks of himself as part of the world. If he is truly religious, then he will feel connected to God, who created everything around him. In various circumstances, there is some good, some bad, some happy and unhappy, all put together. A person may assess himself as good or as bad but trying to improve, and as generally happy or unhappy. When each of us thinks of I, we think in connection with all the surrounding conditions. Does I exist now? But when did it begin? You might think, well, I'm 30, so I started to exist 30 years ago. In addition, you think that you have been and always are increasing in age. You also realize that you didn't just abruptly start from nothing, but received certain things from your parents. You didn't begin to exist with yourself, but with your parents. Your course of thought traces back to your parents, their parents, and so on through your ancestry. If you have a good imagination, you might trace it back to the beginning of energy, which has been passed down through your ancestors. If you pull yourself in a certain direction at this point, you're not pulling yourself alone, but all your lineage as well. If I pull one thin hair on your head, the rest of your body had better follow along if it doesn't want to feel any pain. When you dance about the floor, the whole lineage that is connected with you is also moving around. No one wants to be isolated, but desires instead to be proud of representing everything that is connected to him. Would you choose to be isolated and independent, or to represent many more people than just yourself? Everyone wants the second choice. Why should you feel like that? Why do we tend to think of ourselves as the center of everything surrounding us? Is it because we want mastery and control? Whatever the reason, the fact remains that an individual will try to protect himself from invasion. Also, you want your eyes to be the best of all eyes, your nose and even your hair to be the best. You want to protect even external things which change, like your clothes. Where does this quality come from? Everyone wants to advance, whether he is of low or high capacity. We can state that the action of consciousness demands the uplifting of the individual. Why does each person want to make himself better? Where does that action of consciousness come from? It is derived from a cause and effect relationship. No action is initiated without purpose. All actions have some purpose. The bird sings and the bee hums. The butterfly flies, the wind blows. All of these have their purpose. When your eyelid blinks, it certainly has a purpose, doesn't it? Your breathing has a purpose. When you smile, it is not for yourself, but for some reason. No action takes place without purpose. Scientists maintain that the universe is made up of energy. Energy exists everywhere, as well as force or power. Is force or energy first? Does the divine principle teach that force comes into being by give and take action, or does give and take action exist after the force exists? We should examine our thought carefully to see if we are not taking the answer for granted. Seen from different angles, both viewpoints seem entirely correct. So it is important to know which is the correct answer. What is your opinion? Action certainly must come from a definite source. The subject and object precede action. If we pursue this a little further, we can say that if God is omnipresent, then he must have both subject and object qualities. God's dual characteristics are not just conceptual or abstract. They are very real and important to our lives. Ever since the universe and individual entities came into being, subject and object were the beginning of the existence of self. All things in the universe are made up of these two different qualities or parts, and each is involved in give and take action. The force of the result is the consequence of the subject and object having give and take action. Let us take the simple example of parents having give and take of love. Their child will be the result. The child is like the force which results from the give and take action. What causes that? God is the cause, and that process follows the pattern of God's creative process. The force has within itself the possibility of give and take action because it is the result of give and take action. When we think of force, we immediately comprehend two qualities of subject and object, cause and result. When you think of your existence, you think of the power within yourself. But prior to that, you realize the give and take action within yourself. Therefore, you are the subject body of force. You are very powerful. In you are mind and body, which form a subject and object relationship. And when they have give and take action, you can't help but feel the resulting power within yourself. When you draw a line down your front, dividing you in half, the two parts look alike externally. Why is that? Because the cause has that quality, the result has to be that way. That's a very logical reason. When scientists examine the development of life forms, they conclude that energy randomly evolved into higher and more complex beings, and this is how man came to exist. This theory is not logical when we really examine it. It is more reasonable that subject and object together would form a self, which in turn would become a subject and take an object. Together, they would form a higher life form or bigger self, a subject and take an object, and so on, forming greater and greater entities. In our social life, we want to broaden our sphere of influence, increasing our areas of activity. When you become a subject on one level, you want to find an object on that level. And then when you are united, you find that together you become a subject on another level. Scientists explain the formation of new species through random mutation, saying it happens by chance. We can immediately see that this is false logic. But they have not come up with some better theory, so they stick with this one. It does not stand to reason to say that a small thing could just suddenly become big. Even a non-scholar would find the subject-object explanation more reasonable. How could a bigger self come to exist? Where does the original force come from that can cause a smaller self to grow bigger, that can make a small group of cells to become bigger and enable each step to develop? Certainly, no give and take action happens without purpose. A force is the result of give and take action, but there must be some purpose preceding that give and take action. Nothing happens without purpose. A chemistry professor trying to mix a plus element and a minus element of different quality will never get a reaction. But if he prepares a compatible subject and object and merely brings them close together, then give and take action will automatically happen. This explanation, based on give and take, describes science more adequately than theories of probability or random occurrence. In the beginning, I pointed out that each person wants to become greater and greater in life and gets angry if he cannot do so. Does that happen at random too, or is it inevitable? We know now that it has to happen like that because the conscience is at work. Everything comes into the realm of subject and object, and it is a collection of subject-object relationships. This means that I exists within a broad universe and lives only within that broad purpose. Therefore, one's conscience always directs him to become bigger and greater. We have to be aware of the purpose for that. This is explained through the four-position foundation. In order to have circular action, there must be plus, minus, not plus, minus, minus, plus. Can you name one thing which does not move or turn? When anything stubbornly refuses to move, it ceases to exist. Each cell is vigorously active, and the collection of these cells, which is you, is even more active. The whole universe is full of vitality. You can easily accept that, can't you? Our conclusion is that this big universe moves with one certain purpose, not haphazardly. Even one of the billions of tiny cells in your body has plus and minus and is an inseparable part of the universe, and so it wants to become as great as the whole universe. Even a tiny cell will rebel if the larger organism no longer wants to become greater. This is why each man has hope for greater happiness in the future. If a person is restricted to living in one situation for the rest of his life, he loses his will to live. What existed before force existed? The action of subject and object. And where does action come from? Action derives from a subject and object, and the whole thing takes place because of the whole purpose. There are dual purposes here. One is to maintain oneself, and the other is to become part of the larger self, which is the universe. A man's purpose for taking an object is to preserve and perfect himself, and then become one with a woman, and their purpose is to have children. Then they stand in the same position as their ancestors. Let us look at the example of our eyes. The eye has the purpose of self-existence, but also of serving the whole body. The ear has to operate automatically, but it also helps the whole. Because of this purpose, everything from particles to the largest creation has a right to exist. How could the universe be interrelated? It is because all individuals have dual objectives. One is to protect the self, and the other to make sure the self combines with another self to become a bigger self. The theory of evolution understands individual purpose of self-preservation, although it does not grasp the ultimate purpose of the whole. Conscientious scholars today have no answer for the question of how the universe is perpetuated and what its purpose is. Their conclusion is that it has no purpose, but just goes on and will perish at one point. But we know this is not true. Something may seem to perish, but as it passes away, something else will be formed. This happens because everything has a purpose. The same principle applies to every aspect of the universe. Individuals gather to meet individual needs, but also for the purpose of forming a greater being. If someone wants to have a greater character, he must be available as an object to the whole universe as his subject. He must be worthy of it. Individual purpose must always follow the purpose of the whole. Conscientious people wonder why big fish eat little fish, why some animals are carnivores, why the powerful eat the weak, and see this as a chaotic situation. According to the principle that the smaller things exist for the larger purpose, the lion is justified in eating the rabbit. This is the key to the whole problem. The small purpose exists for the purpose of the greater existence, which is ultimately the whole universe. People don't know that they exist for the purpose and betterment of the whole. Who says so? God says so. More objectively, the universe says so. Freedom Society members are the most consistent people in all history because they know the individual should exist for the family for the tribe for the nation, and the nation for the world. We not only think that, but live that way. Why do we do that? In a sense, it is for a selfish reason, because by going on to bigger and bigger levels, we make ourselves available to become big individuals. No one today, from the lowest to the highest level, knows what man is or who the individual self is. All their confusion arises from ignorance. First, we must teach them, then show them how to live, and then we can restore order in the world. This principle explains all phenomena from the past, and we have to apply it consistently all the time. You cannot learn this in school. Your teachers don't know it. Your professors don't know it. Your politicians, they don't know it. Your church leaders don't know it. Reverend Moon is the first teacher of this knowledge. This is the beginning of a new culture. By knowing this, you can comprehend divine principle even better and know why there are three stages: subject and object, how give and take occurs, and why there is a purpose. Now the divine principle is no longer conceptual, but something you can put into action in every circumstance. Now you will never forget, because the divine principle is you. When you think of force, what do you think of? Action. And when you think of action, you immediately think of plus and minus, subject and object. When you feel powerful, you can know that some give and take action is happening, so your mind and body must be in harmony. You must be smarter than to think it begins with you. And remember that God, your Father, gave it to you and you resemble Him. You then remember that He has the whole universe under Him, and yourself is a small part of that universe. You are a small minus to the universe, which is the biggest possible plus. God is a big plus and you are a small minus. But this small minus has the purpose of becoming as great as the plus. This is why you want to become great. This is perfectly logical, and something that stands to reason is reality itself. Each of us has a nudge to become great, but until now you didn't know why God and the universe also wanted you to become great. They want to pull you up like a big winch. If you go to the top of a mountain, you can actually catch up with God better. In other words, if you have a broader, deeper thought, God can love you and encourage you to go higher and higher. What is God's thought? His thought is to become powerful according to principle and to realize the ideal world. Will He do that by force? Is God going to make the world great because He has all knowledge? Could the strongest man on earth make the ideal world? Harvard professors are proud of their knowledge, but could they do it? What is the essence that can make the ideal world? True love. The other day I paraphrased love as being long, very long. You think you know English, but you didn't know love was long. Long, very long. Love should last a long, long, long time. How does God want to make the ideal world? If you ask God where He wants to be at any given time, He will say He wants to be at the center of the universe. If you ask God which center of the universe He wants to be at, whether of knowledge or power, He will say He wants to be at the long, long, long center of the universe. Is this stretching the truth too far? When I asked you why you wanted to become greater and greater, you didn't have an answer. Now you know you want to be great, so that based on love, you can become the companion of the center of the universe and be worthy of being His object. Though we know we are very small, we want to be objects to the great universal subject in love. If God wants to be at the center, where would you want to be? At the center of the love in the universe. When I seriously ask you where we are going, you have to have some answer. We are going to the objective of love on the universal level. Since God is going there also, we are bound to meet Him. Even though you become very knowledgeable, it will eventually pass. Power cannot last eternally either. But if you are pursuing love and find it, it will last a long time. Very long time. We have to have some life perspective, some awareness of our purpose. When we have that in ourselves, then we can go there. With this life perspective, you can know why the world has to be peaceful and how that can happen through love. And then your entire plan and idea can come to one focal point. Only a handful of people on the face of the earth know that they should be living with their purpose and direction taking them toward love. If that prevails in the world, then the earth can become peaceful. Now, when I ask you who you are in a position to answer for the first time, I am the one who is supposed to go toward the purpose of love on the universal level. We know that all things exist for man because man has love. The animals and plants willingly sacrifice for man because he is reaching for the objective of love with God. You like steaks, don't you? Do you eat a steak for your own enjoyment? Or do you think that the steak will help you get nearer to the love of God? If it was for love, then the meat would be glad to be eaten and say, "Eat me quickly, please." That meat also craves love. A stick of celery wants to continue its own life. But when you eat it, you can say, "I assure you that through me, you will come closer to God's love." If a person is perfect in this respect, all things will want to tag along and be eaten by him. Money will want to be earned by him. Today, men chase money, but the money runs away. If you become a person of original purpose, however, then money will follow you. If another person follows after money, the money will be scared, thinking, "A tiger is after me." That person will end up in hell. Would you rather follow money or love? If you follow love, you will never be disappointed. When love calls, everyone opens the door to their mind. When you give love, you get back better. You will never be a loser. The way of love is the ultimate way of success in life.